当您需要帮助时，请联系乘务员。
Please contact flight attendants when you need help.
女士们、先生们，感谢您的关注，祝您旅途愉快。
Welcome, Vegas vets and Vegas veterans, Vegas newbies, and everyone in between. This is Josh from Big Slick Vegas, and for today's video, we're going to talk about flying to Vegas. Now, one question I sometimes see is what is the best airline or cheapest airline sometimes to take when flying into Las Vegas? Now, a lot of this can depend a lot really on where you're flying from. If you're coming from a small airport like myself, your options typically are limited, and oftentimes you're going to have to probably transfer planes in another city before getting there if that's the case. In my case, it's actually pretty good because Southwest does offer a daily nonstop flight from Amarillo to Las Vegas. Allegiant also offers a couple nonstop flights a week. I think it's just on Sundays and Thursdays. But if you're flying from a major city, from a major airport, your options can be a lot more. And depending on if your airport happens to be a hub for a major airline, can kind of depend on what your best option is going to be. So, for example, if you're in the Chicago area, which has two major airports, if you fly out of Midway, then Southwest Airlines is going to be your best bet. If you prefer to fly out of O'Hare Airport, then United or American. If, say, you're living in the Atlanta area, then oftentimes Delta is going to be your best bet, just because of the frequency of flights, which will typically is probably also going to be your cheapest option as well. So overall, just looking at feedback that I've seen and based on the research I've done, it would appear that Southwest Airlines is probably the most popular airline to use going to and from Las Vegas. A lot of that is they operate the most flights out of the airport there, which means you're going to have probably a better selection of flights. Another good thing about that too is, for some reason, if your flight is canceled, they can oftentimes get you on another flight that day unless you're traveling later in the evening. Now, that might mean that if they get you on another flight, it might mean you might have to make a connection someplace. Once again, that just depends on where you're flying to, if it's a larger airport or a smaller airport. Now, JetBlue is another discount carrier that is also very popular. Unfortunately, they don't quite have the huge network that Southwest Airlines has here in the United States. They're really good if you're flying from East Coast to West Coast. So if you're in the New York or Boston area, they do offer some direct flights on JetBlue, and JetBlue is a very highly rated airline. They're typically in the top 3 or 4 as far as this customer satisfaction survey on JD Power and Associates, as far as airline quality rankings. Also, if you're in the Los Angeles area, they also do offer many direct flights from LAX to Las Vegas. Now, as far as some of the legacy air carriers, these are like the 3 major ones: Delta, American, United. Overall, once again, you're going to have probably a decent amount of options to fly on any of these airlines. And once again, if there's a problem with a cancellation, not only do they have the ability to get you on another flight on theirs, but if need be, they can even move you to another airline, as many of these airlines have code sharing agreements with one another. Now, amongst those 3, Delta consistently is normally ranked a lot higher as far as customer satisfaction, so that might be your best. If you have the option, that might be your best option between those 3. American seems to be in the middle, and oftentimes I've seen United kind of towards the bottom, but a lot of it's just by your own personal preference. But This is mainly for those who've never really flown a whole lot before into Las Vegas. Now, you do have these what are called the ultra low cost carriers. Here in the United States, it's mainly Frontier, Allegiant, and Spirit. Now, a lot of these places will serve, particularly Allegiant serves a lot of smaller airports to Las Vegas, but oftentimes those flights are only once or twice a week. Frontier typically offers quite a few flights into Las Vegas, as does Spirit. Uh, Between those three, it seems like overall Spirit seems to have the best reputation out of the three, but that's not saying much. Just keep in mind with these three, yes, the fares are going to be extremely low, but if you're planning on checking in any luggage, if you're wanting any drinks or snacks on the airplane, you're going to be paying extra. So you're going to have to weigh those costs to see if that's going to be worth your time and money. Also, particularly with Frontier, doesn't exactly have the best reputation for being on time and canceling flights and so forth. Another thing you want to look at, and Allegiant too, getting back to them, their flight they're, they're not known for in the past having the best safety record in the world, but it sounds like they've rectified that problem that they were having with their maintenance issues with their planes. One thing too to consider with ultra low cost carriers, oftentimes because they have minimal flights to certain destinations, particularly small destinations, if for some reason they cancel and they have a reputation of doing that, you're kind of on your own. So it might not be till next day before you even get a flight out. And even then, their customer service and regarding such matters are not known for being very good. If you check out the YouTube channel, We Work to Live in Vegas, or Work to Go to Las Vegas with David Michelle, they had a nice little mishap with Frontier Airlines, so you might want to check that out before booking on Frontier. Now, if you are coming from outside the United States, I've noticed that from Canada, our neighbors to the north, popular, it seems like the two major ones that go into Vegas are WestJet and Air Canada. Seems that by and large, WestJet has a better reputation than Air Canada. From coming from the UK, seems to be kind of split between allegiances to British Airways and Virgin Atlantic, but both those airlines do fly direct nonstop flights from the UK into Las Vegas. I'm not sure too many about the other European airlines, especially with travel restrictions that are just now starting to ease. Hopefully, some of them will have. I know Lufthansa used to have a direct flight into Vegas from Germany. Also, there's a discount German airline known as Condor that I think also flew into Las Vegas directly, and a few handful of others. Hawaii, if you're coming from Hawaii, Hawaiian Airlines does offer direct flights, and they have a very good reputation from a customer service level. And of course, many of you, especially those of you living in Hawaii, know this already. Vegas happens to be one of the top vacation destinations for those living in Hawaii. In Mexico, two discount carriers, Valeris and Viva Aerobus, both have decent reputations. I think Valeris seems to have a better reputation than Viva Aerobus, and then there is their main flag carrier out of Mexico. That would be Aero Mexico as well. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what airlines to look at, maybe ones you might want to avoid. Certainly with the ultra low cost carriers, you need to be aware that sometimes if things do go awry, they don't necessarily have a good reputation in fixing the matter for their customers. So just be aware of that. One other thing too we'll cover is what's the best time to fly into Vegas exactly. And for me, and granted, once again, you're sometimes at the mercy of the schedule of the airlines, and also their airfares can certainly fluctuate over the course of the day. But I myself like to leave to go to Vegas if possible. I at least like to get there around no right around noon, around about midday, if not earlier. Obviously, those of you coming from overseas don't have much of a choice in that. Well, if you're flying domestically or here in North America, I like to get there somewhat early for two reasons. A, sooner you get to Vegas, the sooner you get to start your vacation. Second, if there is a delay or some sort of cancellation, you still have the rest of the day to get yourself to Vegas. Hopefully, you have an airline that will work with you pretty well on that. Also, early morning flights typically are A, among the cheaper as far as the fares go, and B, you're less likely to have any delays or cancellations. So that's something to consider. And I would say the same thing too when leaving Vegas. Maybe not as big of a deal. I'd normally like to leave about midday, no later than 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and no earlier than 9 or 10, just because I hate getting up really, really early to go to the airport, especially in Vegas. But just keep in mind, once again, I say that somewhere around midday, just because once again, if there is a cancellation or delay, you'll still be able to get a flight out of Vegas that same day. Also, know this too about the security lines in Vegas. What are the security lines like when you're flying out of Vegas at the TSA lines? Typically, they're not too bad. I've had some pretty decent, maybe it's just good luck, but I've flown out of Vegas in various different times, and it's never taken me more than an hour from the time that I drop my bags off, get checked in, go through the security line. In fact, the last time I flew out was like a Thursday afternoon, and it took us literally 25 minutes from the time that we got dropped off by our cab to getting through security line. So most of the time, it goes pretty easy, but I would still allow yourself 2 hours at least before your departing time of your flight. So that's going to be it for this recording. Hopefully this helps you out when choosing an airline to fly into Las Vegas. So please comment below. Let me know what your favorite airline is to fly into Las Vegas. And if you have any questions about any airlines that I didn't cover,